My fellow Americans, this is for all my viewers, and the numbers are growing, and I appreciate that very much. And I'm going to answer some of your comments and questions. There's literally hundreds of them, so I can't answer all of them, but I'm just going to kind of go over them greatly. Some of this is hard for me to explain, but I'll do the best I can. My spelling is atrocious. The reason why my spelling is atrocious is because I think probably 3 times faster than most people. Even when I'm thinking what to say here, I'm thinking about a sentence ahead. When I write, I'm thinking 2-3 sentences ahead. I don't correlate to the spelling. It's always been a problem. In all my books, I've had to have professional editors, and papers that I was in school, I had hired a graduate student in English who corrected all my papers. It's a problem I've had. You're seeing a picture of Gutenberg, and he's the most effective man in history as far as evolution goes. And I was once asked that question by a college professor, and I told him that, and he just said that he was absolutely amazed at my comprehension. That's absolutely true. I'm going to show you a bunch of different pictures and talk about each one as I go, as fast as I can, because, as you know, it's minimal time. So, my spelling is atrocious. So was Albert Einstein's, by the way. His wife had to edit everything he did. The only thing that he was accurate in is his formulas. And by the way, when I write formulas, I'm fine. Just when I, write writings, I'm not. I get a lot of questions about like Islam, and this one lady told me she questioned an Islamic friend of hers, and the friends of hers said, "Oh no, we have the same God as you." Well, that's not the way to learn about a subject. You have to go to the sources. Like some of my new videos she hasn't seen, I quote the Quran, and that's the most important thing. Go to the original source. When you study intellectual history in college, you always go to the most original source, and that's why you have to learn numerous languages, because you want to see that when it was written in. So, don't take what somebody says, or even a lot of times with some of these newer authors, they're called history revisionists. They change history. Go to the Quran when you know about Islam. If you want to read about Karl Marx, go to his original writing. Some people question what I said there, thesis, antithesis, synthesis. It's obviously, they never read it. They read some commentary on it. Even on the net is fairly accurate. Some of the things on the net are fairly accurate. And go to the dictionary. Go to frame things out. Here's the dictionary definition of a communist society, which is what we are. It's clear. There's no question about it. It says a social system characterized by the absence of classes and a common ownership to the means of production and subsistence. That's not what we're becoming, I don't know. We're actually that already, but we're becoming even more that way. So that's what communism is. It has numerous forms, of course. Okay. I'm showing you pictures. There's some good people out there that tell you the same thing as me. They don't have as much fortitude that I do, and they're a little bit afraid. The difference between them is they have a lot more to lose. I don't have that much to lose. You're about to see a video, and this is one of the reasons why I'm telling you this is I'm trying to stop what's happening. And you're going to see a video. This is a federal officer in a VA who's checking everybody that's coming in. And listen to what he says clearly. Play it over again. If you don't hear it, listen for the terms KKK. This was just
I got friends with our man, and they think about how the country's changed and everything else. But they don't ever commit a crime. And then I don't like all the law, but I follow them because I live here.
You know as well as I know, people are 80 and 30 that the whites are getting together now in these groups. White supremacists as well, kind of like the KKK, and they're getting back together. And they don't want to doing something.
Is that what you hear about in Mississippi?
It's just all across the country. In different places.
Oh, there's a lot of militant groups.
Yeah, right.
All over. I lived in Florida a while, and I wrote a book called Lead Follow, Get the Hell Out of the Way. So I had all these, militant groups coming to me, they're slender. There's no cohesiveness between any of them. Everything they do.
Okay, this is not a bad man. Believe me, he's not a bad man. He's being driven crazy by communists and ideologies that he's been hearing for years. And that's what I mean by going to source. I'm afraid this is going to happen to this country, a beloved country of ours. It's just going mad. and not with just communism and in fights among the media and fights among the media and the presidency and fights among Congress. It's just all feuding. It's a perfect example. I read this in one of my other videos. I'm going to start reading it in all my videos. This is a quote from the Quran. Believe me, this is the Quran, okay? It's 9:29, 9th chapter, 29th verse. Quote, unquote, quote, and fight those that have not the faith in God, which to them is Allah, nor in the hereafter, and whom forbid not what God and his prophets have forbidden, and who are not committed to the religion of truth, which is Allah. Unquote. The thing about that woman, again, something else comes to mind. She says that this Islamic person, which was probably American, of course, American Islamic, told her that she was, there was the same God. But they don't believe that. There's another quote, I can't find it in here right now, and it's in the Quran, and it simply says, if you believe in Christ, you cannot believe in Allah. They said in the Quran, in many places, Christ is depicted as one of the earlier kind of insignificant prophets. So, don't believe what these people tell you. Go to the original source if you don't believe me. Everything I tell you is absolutely accurate. It has been authenticated by original sources, close as possible. I'm showing you some of my land where I live out in Arizona. It's just gorgeous. And that's what I want to preserve. I want it to maintain. I want it to stay that way. I talked a little bit in there. Okay, so start going to the original source if you don't believe me. If you believe me, fine. I'm telling you the truth. The only place I give a little hyperbole is when I'm doing things that are humorous. And of course, I hope you know that they're for that purpose. And for example, the one I did with the space, mission to moon. When I first heard that, it was obvious that it was not the truth. I checked with some people I know, and they told me for a fact that it was not for the purpose of finding water, which is absurd. It was for the purpose of testing a bomb, and they were trying to tell, Iran that they're going to blow their new facility out of the earth, which is down several hundred feet. If you don't understand what I'm talking about, watch that video. It talks about that. So, again, I went to the source. I knew there was something wrong. Heck, I was 5 years old. And I could read and write already. I learned to read and write. And I spoke when I was 1, and I was reading and writing when I was about 2 years old. So I went to kindergarten when I was 5 years old, and I saw a picture of a hummingbird. And under the hummingbird, it said, that's the only bird that can fly backwards. And I know I'd seen other birds than hummingbirds fly backwards. I went to the teacher, and I started, screaming, this is not right. This is not correct. How can you do this? How can you teach this? And I had to call my parents to school, which they did many times. Because I questioned, I didn't look at just the obvious, what was presented for me. I looked at the facts behind it. I went to the source. In my yard, there were birds. I lived out in the edge of Cleveland, Ohio, and it was near the woods. There were different birds I saw flying backwards, and some were hovering. Maybe not as well as a hummingbird, but they did. So, don't believe just what you hear, and if you don't believe what I tell you is the truth, okay, that should be obvious by now. If you've checked out some things I said, even like the FBI. There's a videotape of me working for the FBI. It was broadcast about 7 years ago, and I caught the guy that they let go, okay? I don't know if the FBI is confiscated, but it was on national television, and it's obviously me. I was driving the boat. They couldn't catch the guy. I caught the guy. He was a domestic terrorist named Stephen Jordy. He was going to blow up a bunch of clinics and kill as many people as he could that were associated with abortions. So go to the source. It's either NBC or CBS, and it was about Stephen Jordy. Call him up. Say you want to see that again or something. I don't know how to get to it, but I had a copy of it, and of course they stole it, of course, and they want me to project it. Let me tell you something else I heard very interesting today. I'll show you how the thinking process should be, that you should learn to do it. If you start doing this, then you'll start making changes by voting these people out. When you listen to them, you'll start questioning them, and you'll vote people in that are non-communistic. And the quote was, and I've read this before, it said the majority of Americans believed in God. Not necessarily practice a religion, but they believed in God. You know what? You think about that. That's not true. Majority of Americans don't believe in God. Majority of Americans are afraid not to believe in God.